I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
It makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm not a smart person.
Big, massive dump.
About the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. Wednesday, it's Hump Day. We got a big show for y'all today. We got a lot of stuff that is a lot of content coming your way. Fun stuff, heartbreaking stuff, good news, bad news, fun, making fun of Republicans, of course. Oh, it's going to be a good show. Don't just take my word for it. Of course, sit here and listen. Pull up a chair and listen the next hour and probably some for these fantastic stories. We got Republicans sharing fake news. We got the worst people in the world making good points. We got fake COVID passports. We got we got abortion bans. We got Twitch. I mean, all this stuff. And speaking of Twitch, by the way. So we are not on Twitch today, and there is a reason for that. It is not because Twitch is broken. It is not because there is insanity in the control room, in which, you know...
Who's got a hammer?
I don't need a hammer. I don't need a hammer. It's okay. There is a reason that we are not streaming on Twitch, and I will explain that more in detail. But basically, I am taking the day off Twitch in order to try to promote the end of hate raids. So that's to protect smaller streamers, people who are marginalized. And so I will explain. We've got a segment at the end of the show about this to get into more detail, all that wonderful stuff. But before we do, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. We are streaming, of course, live on YouTube and on Facebook. So we're still there, and we will go back to streaming on Twitch tomorrow. Anyway, let's do that. Hopefully everybody who usually watches on Twitch has seen my tweet about this. So, yeah. They might be very confused and slightly angry, but if they don't know what's going on. But that's all right. I'm sure you'll understand. That said, let's start out with our first story here. Let's go to ridiculous Republicans. Okay. Republicans are big mad that President Joe Biden had enacted Trump's plan to end the war in Afghanistan. And now we're done. The evacuation is complete. The troops are out. The war is over. Yet there are Republicans right now that are molding over it. So now, before we get to the rest of the show, I want to give you a little explanation of what that means. Some of our older viewers, longtime viewers might not know what that means. Molding is basically when somebody is so mad over something so inconsequential that their hair falls out. Now, of course, being a bald American myself, I think I'm the perfect spokesman for, explaining what molding is. And before you say, well, didn't you? No, this is genetic. That said, Republicans molding. So what's got them so worked up about this? I mean, look, they previously supported Donald Trump ending the forever wars. You would think that people would be happy about that. That it would be like, oh, hey, Donald Trump, Joe Biden actually took cues from Donald Trump and did the right thing and ended the war in Afghanistan. Of course not. So there's a bunch of different reasons here. One is politics. Of course, anything that Joe Biden does, Republicans immediately have to be against it, even if they previously supported it. That's normal, ridiculous. That's our political system, kind of in a nutshell. It sucks, but it's true. Now, secondly, is the fact, of course, they hate Muslims. The right wing hates scary Muslims. The Taliban happen to be Muslims. That said, I'm not a fan of the Taliban. I don't think any of us are. They're religious fundamentalists. I'm not a fan of that. They don't believe in gay rights. They don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in science. Hey, wait a minute. That sounds familiar. Doesn't that sound like a lot like the current Republican Party? Huh. Well, interesting. You would think that they would actually have a lot in common. Weird. All right. But the biggest reason, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's because the majority of the American people are supporting this decision. Now, of course, you could look at some of the polls and be like, what are you talking about? The American people are not happy about this. No, they're actually happy about the pullout. A new study from Pew Research conducted prior to the last soldier leaving Afghanistan found that 54% of U.S. adults said the decision to withdraw troops from the country was right, was correct. They agree with Biden. Even if they don't agree on how messy the pullout was, they still were like, yeah, overwhelmingly, no, we don't want to be in Afghanistan anymore. Now, 42% think, oh, it's the wrong move. To them, I ask, did you want to stay there another 20 years? And waste blood, treasure on another 20 years and then pull out then, in 2041 and then have the exact same thing happen? You're still going to get the same results. Unsurprisingly, of course, this is mainly partisan, okay? So here's how the poll breaks down. Majority of Democrats, 70%, said they support the decision to withdraw, while most Republicans, 64%, said it was the wrong decision. Now, again, when Trump said we should pull out of Afghanistan, again, the majority of Americans also agreed with that. But what happened? Well, you had a couple of things. Of course, you had Republicans immediately turning on Joe Biden and saying, no, we love endless war. What are you talking about? Now that Biden did it, we love endless war. And then, of course, for the others, you have this nonstop media, corporate media blitz attacking Biden for ending the war in Afghanistan. And they're constantly conjuring up images of, terrorists coming over, terrorizing America, 9/11, nuclear mushroom clouds. Oh, the Taliban, they're going to come for us. And so they've been trying to make the case to go back in. The media has. And corporate media, of course, has never, they love war. They never met a war they didn't love. Okay? And that's the situation. Corporate media, nonstop attacking Joe Biden over this. So that said, right, I give you this all in context, all to prepare you for what they're trying to do to change your public opinion, okay? And that's, of course, by sharing fake news. Yeah, of course. So now, Ted Cruz and Dan Crenshaw recently tweeted out a fake story that claimed that the Taliban was now executing people with American equipment Black Hawk helicopters specifically, and they showed a video that purported to show that there was a person hanging from a Black Hawk helicopter. I'm actually going to show you that video. Take a look. Oh no, American equipment. Oh, that was ours, and we gave it to the Afghan military. Now they're flying around hanging people. Oh my God. Now that is a real video, and there was a person that got this video from a now suspended account related to the Taliban. But the person who found this captioned it, "Taliban hanging someone from helicopter in Kandahar." Okay. Now, again, the original caption for the video from that suspended account actually made no mention of an execution, but simply said, "Our Air Force, at this time, the Islamic Emirates Air Force helicopters are flying over Kandahar city and patrolling the city." So that's a far cry from their hanging people from helicopters. But Republicans, Republicans, you gotta understand, they love fake news. They love it. And so they decided to fill in the blanks with, "Oh my God, scary Muslims doing scary Muslim things." So first, over on the left, you've got Liz Wheeler. "This is what it looks like, the Taliban hanging someone from an American Black Hawk. I could vomit. Joe Biden is responsible." Ugh. And then, of course, Ted Cruz. This horrifying image encapsulates Joe Biden's Afghanistan catastrophe. The Taliban hanging a man from an American Black Hawk helicopter. Tragic. Unimaginable. Dan Crenshaw says, "In what effing world was it a good idea to just hand over a country to these people?" They'll show that video of a purported helicopter hanging, but saying the F word, that's too much. That's too much. So, now the New York Post also weighed in, of course, and they used this headline, "Shocking video shows man hanging below Black Hawk flown by Taliban," and only noted in the bottom of the story, the body of the story, that it is not immediately clear how he is attached or if he is alive. So, now, they must have not, really paid too much of attention to that video, but don't worry, I've got another video which shows what's actually going on here. But you can see the man is not being hung by his neck. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. I got another video. Here it is. All right, so now, oh man, that person waving to the people on the ground looks real bad. Oh, those dastardly Taliban hanging people who are obviously alive and on a harness, waving at others from a Black Hawk. So what was going on here? What's the reality here? Okay, well, here's freelance journalist Bilal Sarwari. He explains this on Twitter. Afghan pilot flying. This is someone I've known over the years. He was trained by the U.S. and the UAE. He confirmed to me that he flew the Black Hawk helicopter. Taliban fighter seen here, the guy who was hanging, was actually trying to install a Taliban flag from the air, but didn't work out in the end. So something actually is pretty innocuous. Hanging a flag. Look, using a helicopter to hang a flag, that's kind of a dumb idea, actually. Then again, I don't know much about flag hanging, but certainly it wasn't people hanging, and I'd rather have flag hanging than people hanging. At the end of the day, though, the whole point is, oops, fake news. Here we go. Look, now Cruz did eventually delete a tweet and replace it with a somewhat corrected one. But Crenshaw, as of right now, as far as I know, has actually not deleted that tweet. So that's very interesting. Now, one more point here. A lot of Republicans immediately share fake news. We know that. Okay. That's fairly obvious. But unfortunately, they're not the only ones. And while it is a fact that Republicans are much more likely to believe in and share fake news, once in a while, there are sources, so-called reputable sources, that tend to get it wrong. In fact, who can forget this bungle by CNN? Yeah. The 2015 ISIS butt plug flag. ISIS flag spotted at Gay Pride, which would be the last place that ISIS would go because they're fundamental. CNN, what are you doing? CNN, obviously, very, very obvious sex toys on that flag, not an ISIS flag. Come on.
Give me a break.
All right. So, look, point is, everybody needs to calm down. All right. Everybody needs to make sure to not jump to conclusions when they see things, right? About what, about pretty much anything that they see online. And I'm going to out myself here. I made a mistake the other day. So I'm going to be honest about this. So there was a tweet, alleged tweet from a Facebook group that I shared on the show last week that, was somebody who allegedly crapped themselves after taking ivermectin. Now, you shouldn't take ivermectin, okay? Don't go to the feed store and buy that stuff, okay? But that particular post that I shared actually wasn't true. It was somebody who was trolling. Hey, honesty in media. I made a mistake. I own up to it. And so that's really what you got to do. You do better next time. So just be sure, do some fact checking, and don't jump to conclusions when you see stuff online. And that's really the best and biggest lesson you can take from all of this. And the fact that, of course, Ted Cruz is one cringy motherfucker. All right. Anyway. Yeah, it's selling up the feed store. You can't find it. Oh, my God. All right. Well, let's move on. We got more Afghanistan stuff. All right. Following the final withdrawal from Afghanistan, President Joe Biden pushed back against corporate media in an incredibly strong speech and earned some interesting praise from someone that is unexpected. So now first, I want to show you a snippet of the speech that he made yesterday, and because I think it's important to the context, and then I want to get to the reaction. Take a look.
This decision about Afghanistan is not just about Afghanistan. It's about ending an era of major military operations to remake other countries. When I was running for president, I made a commitment to the American people that I would end this war. Today, I've honored that commitment. It was time to be honest with the American people again. We no longer had a clear purpose in an open-ended mission in Afghanistan. After 20 years of war in Afghanistan, I refuse to send another generation of America's sons and daughters to fight a war that should have ended long ago. What have we lost as a consequence in terms of opportunities? I refuse to continue a war that was no longer in the service of the vital national interest of our people. And most of all, after 800,000 Americans serving in Afghanistan, I've traveled that whole country, brave and honorable service. After 20,744 American servicemen and women injured, and the loss of 2,461 American personnel, including 13 lives lost just this week, I refuse to open another decade of warfare in Afghanistan.
Now look, out of the gate, pretty strong speech. A pretty strong rebuke of corporate media and their, of course, lust for war. And so I like that. I want to see more of that kind of Biden. In fact, here's what he also said. Well, I take responsibility for the decision. Now, some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner, and couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. So basically, Biden he's out of fucks. And he just basically told, in the nicest way possible, in the most politician way, he told the media to go pound sand. And that's interesting. So now the White House did not expect the media to turn on him on that issue. But again, when it comes to war, the media is massively pro-war. And so it did. And most Republicans, by the way, they also turned on this. Because, first of all, when Trump proposed this, leaving Afghanistan, they're like, Trump, yeah! Woo, leave Afghanistan. Yeah, let's do it. And now that it's Joe Biden, well, how dare you leave the country for the Taliban? How dare you leave Afghanistan? We should be there for another 20 years, no, 50 years, no, 100 years. No, they were gonna take over anyway. One Republican, however, has deviated from the pack. So now that is, and this is sad. It's literally the worst person you know. Ann Coulter. Here's what she tweeted. Thank you, President Biden, for keeping a promise Trump made, but then abandoned when he got to office. Oof. She added, Trump repeatedly demanded that we bring our soldiers home, but only President Biden had the balls to do it. Here are a few of Trump's wuss, masterful tweets. And by the way, she shared a couple of them. I'm going to share more. So, let me just go and get that up here in a second. So that's a bunch of Trump's masterful tweets there. We should leave Afghanistan immediately. We shouldn't go back. Rebuild the U.S. first. Time to get out of Afghanistan. We're building roads and schools for people that hate us. It's not in our national interest. Afghanistan is a total disaster. We don't know what we're doing. We've wasted an enormous amount of blood and treasure in Afghanistan. The government has had zero appreciation. Let's get out. Don't allow our stupid leaders, very stupid leaders, to sign a deal that keeps us in Afghanistan through 2024 with at all costs by USA, make America great. On and on and on. You get the point, right? So, heartbreaking. And I say heartbreaking, again, because that's the worst person you know. But also, she's right. Broken clocks, right? Whew. Donald Trump has also, by the way, come out against Joe Biden on this. I want to show you here. This is a video from his rally last week in Cullman, Alabama. Take a look.
Biden failed totally on the pandemic, and he's now overseeing the greatest foreign policy humiliation in the history of the United States of America. This is the greatest humiliation I've ever seen. Biden's botched exit in Afghanistan is the most astonishing display of gross incompetence by a nation's leader, perhaps at any time that anybody's ever seen. Name another situation like this. Vietnam looks like a masterclass in strategy compared to Joe Biden's catastrophe. And it didn't have to happen. All he had to do is leave the soldiers there until everything's out. Our citizens, our weapons. Then you bomb the hell out of the bases. We have 5 bases. And you say, bye-bye. This will go down as one of the great military defeats of all time. And it did not have to happen that way. This is not a withdrawal. This was a total surrender. This surrender for no reason.
Oh, let's just get out and then bomb all of our bases. You realize, like, you're going to bomb places that the Taliban now has. So that means you're going to bomb the Taliban and get us back into another war. But oh, no, it didn't have to happen this way. Okay, what? No, here's the thing. This is basically the only way. There's no clear, clean withdrawal from a place like this. This had happened under Donald Trump. It would have happened the same way. But, you know, here's the thing. Trump didn't have a plan. Remember when we waited for his terrific, phenomenal, and fantastic new healthcare plan? Yeah, it didn't happen. Why? Because he didn't have one. And he didn't have a real plan for preventing a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan either. Nobody did. Nobody had a plan. It would have always went this way, perhaps worse, because you never would have known with Donald Trump. So it's a nice bit of hypocrisy. And that's really what this is. Now, the one thing that I can actually give Ann Coulter some credit for, and saying that just kind of makes my skin crawl, I'm not going to lie about that. She's consistent. Look, she hates brown people, but she is honest about it. I mean, she's not doing what the other Republicans are doing and suddenly pretending to care about the poor innocent Afghans, right, in order to score political points against Democrats. No, she is still always an unabashed white nationalist. And she, again, still hates brown people, will be railing against bringing in Afghan immigrants, which I think is the number one thing that we should be doing right now, is bringing in as many Afghan immigrants and refugees as we can to get them away from the Taliban. But, you know, what's refreshing about this is that at least you know the monster you're dealing with. And they're being honest about being who they are. So, whereas, of course, Tucker Carlson, by the way, Tucker Carlson plays a monster on TV to be rich. I think they're both awful people, and I think Tucker Carlson's actually worse. Why? Because he probably doesn't even believe half the stuff that he's actually saying. But he does, he says it, because he knows who butters his bread. That makes him, I think, even worse than Ann Coulter, who, on occasion, is actually sometimes right, again, on occasion, and even shows a little bit of principle. That's hard to find on the right, almost impossible. Now, if you'll excuse me, after this segment, I'm going to need a shower. Yikes. Yeah. Ugh. Terrible. Just terrible. Yeah, well, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. Very, very leading questions, but just questions. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. We got anti-vaxxer nonsense. As the country continues to deal with outbreaks of the Delta variant of COVID-19 amongst the unvaccinated, many states and cities have enacted certain mandates, including vaccine passports when it comes to flying to avoid having to quarantine. Well, it turns out a 24-year-old woman was arrested and charged with trying to avoid quarantine by using a fake vaccine card. So this happened in Hawaii. The Department of the Attorney General said that Chloe Mrozak of Illinois had submitted a fake COVID vaccination card in order to avoid the state's mandatory 10-day quarantine and allegedly falsified other information about her quarantine location. So get this, how did they catch her? Well, turns out, helps to know how to spell. So understand that that's kind of hard to see. But on that, she writes for her first dose, Moderna. Now, Moderna is one of the vaccines. There's Moderna, there's Pfizer, there's Johnson & Johnson. But again, it helps to know how to spell Moderna. She spelled it with an A instead of an O. Oops. So it was that and other things that tipped them off. Now, on August 23rd, the Safe Travels Program Administrator reported the possible fraudulent vaccination card after Mrozak uploaded and presented the card to the airport screener. The screener failed to confirm her hotel reservation prior to her leaving the processing center. According to court documents, no reservation was found after contacting the hotel that she listed in her Safe Travels forms, and she did not provide her hotel reservation number or return flight information, which generally, of course, it's cheaper to go and get a round-trip ticket. So that's why they looked for that, to see whether or not she's going to go round-trip or she's going to return somewhere and all of that. So they looked into this stuff, and they're like, this looks shady. This looks suspicious. Now, one indication, they said in this report here, this is Special Agent William Lau of the Department of the Attorney General. He said, that's one indication, as well as other things that in the card they thought was suspicious, and as part of being suspicious, did an excellent job in notifying us. Mrozak listed Delaware as the place where she got her vaccination. Special agent in charge of the investigation contacted Delaware officials to verify her vaccination status, but no record was found under her name and date of birth. Oops. Again, oops. After doing some investigation, they found her and arrested her on suspicion of falsified vaccination documents on August 28th at the airport before she could leave the island. Unable to post bail, the special agent reported that she was transported to Queens for COVID screening and later transferred to HBD. And so I wonder if she's actually has COVID. I don't know. I'm glad that so far we do not know, or I would assume that she doesn't. Maybe she would have presented symptoms, or maybe not. I don't know. But I ask a question. What have we learned here? Good spelling is important. But also, just don't falsify travel documents. I mean, can you imagine, by the way, if she paid for that card? Because there are people that pay for these things. There are also, of course, templates you can download and print out, but all of that seems like way more effort than actually going out and getting a free vaccination. Literally, you can go and go into a CVS and get vaccinated in like 5 minutes, in and out. 5 minutes tops. Now, for me, of course, my vaccination took a lot longer. There was actually a larger line at my local health department, and they had, of course, just rolled out the vaccines for the low-risk group that I'm a part of, and so it took a little while to get in. At this point, now it's quick, it's easy, and free. Did I mention free? I know America almost never gives out medicine for free. Maybe they should actually start. Let's start, start with vaccines, and we'll go to insulin, and start giving out that stuff. That would be great. Yes, why don't we do that? So yeah, they're giving out medication. They're giving out a vaccine for public health, and I'm jumped right into that. I haven't become magnetic. I haven't grown a second head, and so seems to work all right. I'm good. But now, some of you might be thinking, oh my God, but the tyranny. The tyranny. She just got arrested for not being vaccinated. Big government. Communism. No, what she got arrested for is lying, falsifying documents, and putting people in danger of getting COVID-19. So this is a public health risk. And look, she's not the first person to falsify vaccine cards. She won't be the last person. There will be plenty more, But I think the best way to combat that is to, well, lead by example. There is literally no reason not to get vaccinated. Unless, of course, you might be allergic to some of the ingredients inside of it, or have some sort of valid medical reason to not get vaccinated, which has to be backed up by a real medical doctor, a real actual doctor. That's all I'm saying. But here, it's time to stop coddling anti-vaxxers. They are a danger to the rest of us, and a reason these outbreaks continue to happen. And I don't give a damn about your freedom once you endanger me or my family, people that I care about. Don't tread on me, bro. Be a big boy or a big girl and go get your free vaccine. It's literally that easy. Yes, not your chiropractor or optometrist, real doctor. You know, not your crystal healer. All right, nothing like that. Real doctor. Get fake card, fake vax card, real death certificate. True. All right. So, before we dive in, I do to the other stories here. Let's go here and look at some. Tyler Heckner, thank you for the $5. Anti-vaxxers are taking away our freedom to live. True. Anti-maskers are killing children in Florida. Also true. Here. I love all the wrong spelling. Pfizer with an F. Janssen and Janssen. Well, they do call it the Janssen though. But yes, there you go. And we're going to take care of the trash here. Yes, please like the stream if you haven't already. Got a lot of trash in here. It's time to clean house. Got to get a moderator in here again. Jesus. I was going to watch on Twitch. Yeah, there's a reason. We'll get to that. Nice crowd on Facebook today. Yes. Hey, appreciate that. 49 people watching on Facebook. Thank you. Appreciate that. Trash taken out. Indeed. How dare you infringe upon my freedom to infringe upon your freedom? True. Anti-maskers want kids to wear respirators. Yeah, or get intubated. Weirdo trolls today. Usually only 2 to 3. Yeah. It's all good. All right, so while we're on this little intermission, I do want to read out a couple of more super chats. Let's see. VMan29397 says, the day that GOP has no real power in the U.S., we should all celebrate, like did he the end of episode 6 question song, Yevnub or victory celebration. Yeah, I'm not sure which song actually, but yes, celebration, good. My second shot didn't get a sore arm, just the first one. Yeah, mine wasn't really sore either of them. I actually had a really pretty good reaction to both shots. I had more nerves than anything, and so for me, I have white coat syndrome. I don't like doctors. I don't like needles, but I still went and did what I had to do to protect my family and my community and myself, because that's what a real man does. Faces their fears. And if you don't do that, beta. All right, anyway. Now let's move on. We got good news. Earlier today, a grand jury returned a 32-count indictment against the officers and paramedics involved in the death of Elijah McClain. So now, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, I'm going to show you a video here where he announces these charges against Aurora police in the death of Elijah McClain. Let's take a look.
Hey, stop right there. Stop. Stop. Stop.
Okay, I don't think we have the video. Oops. I don't have that video. I forgot to put that video in there. All right, we'll start that again. So there is insanity in the control room today. I lied.
There's insanity in the control room.
Okay. So let's go back. I actually don't have it, but I have a statement right here. Earlier today, a grand jury returned a 32-count indictment against the officers and paramedics involved in the death of Elijah McClain. Back in 2019, during an arrest, Aurora police had put the 23-year-old black man in a chokehold and injected him with ketamine, a sedative that led to his death. It definitely contributed to his death. Those charges, of course, come as a result of an investigation launched by Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. Earlier today, he had said that these Aurora police officers, two Aurora police officers, a former police officer, and two paramedics be charged or have been charged with each 1 count of manslaughter and 1 count each of criminally negligent homicide. 2 of the officers face additional assault and crime violence counts. 2 paramedics also face assault counts, in addition to counts of recklessly causing bodily injury with a deadly weapon, which would be the sedative ketamine. Now, for those of you, it's been a while since we've talked about this, but McClain was simply walking home from a convenience store wearing a ski mask because it was, that's just what he was wearing. It doesn't really matter. But somebody called in to report him as being sketchy or suspicious, right? Okay. Now, these officers, when they arrived, there's a different way that could have handled it, right? There's a good way they could have handled it, and then there's a bad way. They chose the bad way. Immediately tried to arrest him. He was unarmed. They used a carotid hold, a technique where pressure is placed on both sides of the neck, and tackled him to the ground. Aurora Fire Department personnel had later injected him with the sedative ketamine, which caused him, of course, to have a heart attack, and was later, he had went to the hospital and was later removed from life support 3 days later. So I want to show you video here from the body cam footage that has been released. It's very difficult to watch, but important to show. Take a look.
Hey, stop right there. Stop. 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 I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious.
Well, okay.
Turn around.
No,
Turn around.
Actually, your hands are
Turn around.
Stop.
Stop tensing up, dude. Stop tensing up, bro. Stop tensing up.
This isn't gonna go well, dude.
Stop tensing up.
No, I am an introvert. Please respect the boundaries that I am speaking.
Relax.
Stop.
Relax.
Stop. I'm going home.
Relax, or I'm going to have to
Leave
change
me
this
alone.
situation, dude.
You guys. Take my power back, and I intend to be
come on with him, okay?
simple.
No,
I intend to be simple.
just grab your gun, dude. Stop, dude. Stop.
Okay. I'm going to stop. Oh.
Okay.
All right, side.
I'm going to straddle him, figure for his legs.
Recovery position. Recovery.
I have his legs. I have his legs.
I have no idea. Right here.
Where's my body?
I have no idea.
It's under 18. You got him. Still fighting us on the ground.
My name's Elijah McClain.
Yeah,
That's
bro.
all.
I'm ready to use carotid.
That's what I was doing. I was just going home. Why? I'm an introvert and I'm different.
Dude, if you keep messing around, I'm gonna bring my dog out. He's gonna dog bite you. You understand me? Keep messing around.
When the ambulance gets here, we're going to go ahead and give him
All
some
the dogs are
ketamine.
okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Perfect, dude. Perfect.
He's drawing up ketamine right now.
Okay.
You want to give that before we...
Yeah, so once he gets out here, I'm going to hit him in the right shoulder.
You want some shit?
Everybody is good.
So, context. Okay. So, He wasn't actually committing any crime. He was walking down the street and apparently looked suspicious while doing so. But other than that, no crime. Just walking while black. Now, another investigation into McClain's death, which was not tasked with determining whether criminal wrongdoing had occurred, found in February that officers had used force, and this is important, right? This is why I showed the part where he was basically threatening to stick the dogs on Elijah. Apparently, these officers had used force or the threat of force nearly constantly against McClain in the 18 minutes from the time police first approached him. That's why one of those police officers no longer is a police officer. Now, that was, again, from the first time, that whole 18 minutes, when they first encountered McClain, to when he was placed on a gurney to be transported to the hospital. Now, the officer said, oh, well, no, we're justified in the use of force because he resisted and showed extraordinary strength. Ah, yes. The good old racist trope of excited delirium. They tried, of course, using that excuse on George Floyd as well to justify his death. Thing is, it's not even in the medical journals, not in the DSM manual. That term was actually first used in 1985 by forensic pathologist Charles Whetley to explain the cause of a series of 7 deaths among people who used cocaine, all of whom were forcibly restrained and 5 of whom died in police custody. It's important to note that while 6 of the 7 people in Whetley's initial case were white, a subsequent review of all the cases of deaths from excited delirium between 1969 and 1990 in Dade County, Florida specifically, showed that black men were more than 3 times as likely to have their cause of death labeled as excited delirium than their white counterparts. So they have been using this excuse, oh, he had excited delirium, and that's why he died. It wasn't our fault. Excited delirium from us arresting him. Not our fault. A recent review found that excited delirium was documented in 3% of police interventions and 10% of deaths in police custody. The most extensive review of all the cases of excited delirium to date, published in 2020, found that the syndrome was most often fatal in the presence of aggressive forms of police restraint, including manhandling and hog ties. So, the authors concluded that excited delirium is not a unique cause of death in the absence of restraint. They discounted acute stimulant intoxication as a direct cause of death, given typically sublethal drug levels found on autopsies. So, now in the case of McClain, there wasn't any drugs in his system until they injected him with ketamine. Now the report, and by the way, the report is disastrous when it comes to that. The report found that officers took McClain into custody within seconds of their interaction, failed to assess whether there was reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime had occurred, and continued to use force against McClain after it was justified. It found paramedics who responded didn't immediately provide care to McClain, accepting the officer's suggestion that he was experiencing excited delirium without evaluating him. Paramedics also overestimated McClain's weight before administering the ketamine, affecting the weight-based calculation for dosage, the report found. So let me give you the numbers on that. Dude was 140 pounds. Light guy. They injected him with 500 milligrams of ketamine, which is more than 1.5 times the dose, the correct dosage for his weight. Gee, I wonder what contributed to his death. Weird. But this fits a pattern with police. They think that black people are older, stronger, and way more than they actually do. That they're bigger, right? And let me give you an example on that. Police originally believed that Tamir Rice was much older. Tamir Rice was 12. He was a child who was gunned down within like 3 seconds of the cops getting out of their police vehicle. And they thought McClain had to have been bigger and stronger than what he really was. And therefore, of course, oh, dangerous. Oh, the big, strong black guy, dangerous. Dude's like 140 soaking wet. Come on. And that's racism. Understand that's what that is. It's not just wearing a Klan hood. It's mistakenly thinking that black kids are older, or black people are older, stronger, bigger, dangerous, without knowing them. The whole idea of black people being physically stronger and more menacing has always played into white hysteria. And that, of course, is in law enforcement. So, I mean, that's the racist attitudes within policing. It's disgusting. So now this indictment was a long time coming. Now, previously, a local district attorney had said in 2019 that they were going to decline charges. Okay? Citing inconclusive evidence surrounding how he died. Well, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious. The massive amount of ketamine in the system and the constant physical attacks against McClain from police and intimidation, all of that playing into this. So what's the next step here? Obviously, the next step is a trial. Next step is a trial, and hopefully getting some convictions, and actually maybe getting some justice for Elijah. Not only that, but I would hope that after this case, police would have to stop using ketamine on people. That they can no longer be allowed to do that, because it's not really protecting police to use this drug. They just want to make their job easier. And that's it. And they tend to use it more on black people because of the whole excited delirium. One more note. Weiser's office is also continuing to investigate whether or not the Aurora Police Department has a pattern or practice of violating citizens' civil rights, which I think would probably play into this case, because it seems like from these officers and their actions that they're obviously had, developed a practice or a culture of doing this to the powerless, doing this to black people. All right. Moving on. One of the most restrictive abortion bills in the country took effect on midnight after the Supreme Court decided not to take action on an emergency appeal by Texas abortion providers. So this is the, again, most restrictive abortion law, anti-abortion law in Texas, which prohibits abortions whenever an ultrasound could detect that what lawmakers defined as a fetal heartbeat. So now, let me just go in and mention that it says lawmakers. What lawmakers define it as a fetal heartbeat, not actual doctors. And I say that, and I point out this distinction because medical and legal experts have already said, well, this is misleading. Embryos don't actually possess a heart at the development stage of less than 6 weeks. Nonetheless, Texas and the Supreme Court say, I don't care. I don't care. Go ahead and do what you're going to do. Ban abortion at 6 weeks. That's what they're doing. And so they're actually one step closer to being a theocracy, a Christian theocracy, than anywhere else in the world. Providers and abortion rights advocates groups say that this would affect at least 85% of the abortions taking place in the state, as many people don't even know they're pregnant within the first 6 weeks. Now, a lot of right-wing groups have been constantly going after Roe v. Wade. They've been enacting bans statewide that continue to be struck down, but they've always been struck down. But what makes this different? Why didn't the Supreme Court take up this case? Turns out this law is different. It was crafted to be different. In the bill, the enforcement is not left up to the state. So that keeps technically the government out of enforcement. SB 8 instead provides enforcement only by private citizens who would sue abortion providers and anyone involved in aiding or abetting an abortion after a so-called heartbeat is detected. That mechanism could allow SB 8 to skirt Roe v. Wade within certain limits. So that's the insidious thing, right? Instead of the state enforcing this, which could be struck down because you can't have the government violating people's right to privacy, we're just going to leave it to the private citizens, which of course aren't always private citizens, because you have people, groups funded by large conservative donors that could use that money to basically sue all of these abortion providers into oblivion. And we already have a group, Texas Right to Life. It's the biggest abortion, anti-abortion organization in the state. Already starts to plans to start suing people that they believe are violating SB 8. They've even set up a whistleblower website where anyone can file anonymous tips about so-called illegal abortions. Oh, there is no way that will not be abused. Providers and doctors are also worried about frivolous lawsuits that could financially ruin them, their employees, as individuals who file lawsuits under SB 8 don't have to provide any sort of personal connection to whomever they sue. So just random people, randos, can come out and say, I think you had an abortion, I'm going to ruin you. Yeah, oh, no way this is not going to be abused. Horrifying. Horrifying. And look, there's that, and of course, the law might also just prevent other women's clinics from offering abortion services at all. That's devastating to working class women who, don't just go to those clinics for abortion services, but for other reproductive care as well. But hey, this is a class issue. Abortion is a class issue because rich women have the availability, the opportunity to fly to another less restrictive state or even country to go and get an abortion. Lower class women, working class women do not. Poor women, women of color, can't afford to travel halfway across the country or even across the state of Texas, it's a pretty big state, and go through the onerous process of getting an abortion, which of course, Republicans have also put many, many barriers, many legal obstacles, mandatory waiting periods, all that stuff in the way of somebody getting an abortion, which, by the way, they refuse to do for guns, which I find is very interesting. And so you only have a very narrow time frame of 6 weeks. That's basically 2 missed periods. That's it. That's it. Anybody who knows anything about women, which apparently these lawmakers do not, knows that there could be missed periods for a multitude of other things that don't include pregnancy. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, for example. I know somebody very, very personally who suffers from that, and some of that is irregular and missed periods, sometimes 2, 3 to 6 months. That can happen. And that's just one example of something other than pregnancy that can delay periods. And you don't know if you're pregnant. And by the time, of course, a woman might actually believe that she might be pregnant, it's too late. No, it's only 1 missed period. Yes, sorry about that. You're right. You're right, it is. So this is, and again, this entire thing is by design. It is a huge, enormous attack on women's bodily autonomy, which is ironic, of course, considering the current party's stance on vaccines. Oh, my body, my choice. Don't mask the kids in school, freedom. And they try to pretend that they're pro-life as well. Interesting. And yet, at the same time, they're like, oh, yeah, force the women to have the babies they don't want and are forced to take care of the rest of their lives. We're the pro-freedom party. Sure you are. Nailed it. Okay. One more story here for y'all. Try to make it quick. Explains why I'm not on Twitch right now. Some of you might have noticed today that some of your favorite Twitch streamers are offline. They're not streaming today. So now I regularly stream this show on Twitch, but today is different. Today, this show joins in solidarity with other creators against hate raids. So now, I'm going to explain what that is. But first, this is an idea that was first created by Twitch streamers Shiny Pen, Lucia Everblack, and Wreck-It Raven, and uses the hashtag #ADayOffTwitch. So what that is that it's just a day-long walkout, which aims to bring greater awareness to the problems that certain creators are suffering on the platform. So now, who is affected, what issues, and what's a hate rate? So to explain that, I actually want to turn this over to James Stephanie Sterling, who in this next video is going to break it down brilliantly.
On Twitch, channels can raid other channels after their stream is ended, sending all their viewers and chat users to another person's stream. The idea is for streamers to boost viewership for their friends and favourites, and of course on Twitch's end it just keeps people locked into the engagement that has become the #1 obsession across online media. The problem is, the concept of the raid has always been easily weaponised in order to harass and abuse others. The hate raid, as it's known, typically involves a dickhead with a fan base of abusive dickheads sending said dickheads to a target's channel in order to spam the chat and be dickheads. It's a shitty thing for anyone to have to deal with, obviously, but lately the situation has gotten completely out of control. Hate raids have gotten automated, with an army of bots now queued up to completely drown a Twitch channel's chat in racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic bullshit. Pretty much anybody who isn't a cis-straight white guy is getting dogpiled by bots that have gotten around content filters and are using Twitch's relatively new visibility tags to find targets. I've been personally subjected to this hate raid shit myself, though my particular experience highlights the sheer lack of fucking imagination transphobes have. The abusive sentiment itself may be pathetic, but it's nonetheless exhausting to have to deal with, and it's disruptive to the broadcast as streamers and their moderators have to drop everything to deal with it. And not all streamers are lucky enough to have moderators, especially the smaller ones who are forced to deal with wave after wave of harassment on their own. And aside from simply trying to insult and offend people who aren't scum, one of the main points of this whole thing is to exhaust people, to divert their attention and give them a shit ton of work to do. But ultimately, of course, the overarching goal is the same as it's always been for the right-wing, gamer-gating, hateful little boys to drive marginalized voices out of gaming, out of online spaces, and to populate these spaces with unchallenged and unchallenging white guys.
Look, if you want to watch the whole video, I would definitely highly recommend it. It is at youtube.com/Jim Sterling, the Jimquisition. And look, they're right. By they, I mean James Stephanie Sterling, non-binary. People like me, cisgendered white guys, we don't see hate raids. Why? I'm white. I'm literally an example of white privilege in action. I don't have to face this. And look, I'm not that big on Twitch. Doesn't matter. They go after small creators. They go after marginalized small creators, black people, people that are members of the LGBTQIA+ community. That's who they target with these bots, with these raids. And so, look, even though, like I said, I'm not that big, I support this, and I support bigger Twitch streamers coming out and also supporting this. I believe the Surfs, Land to the Surfs is also supporting this, and he's been trying to get his platform away from Twitch as well. But look, I want diverse voices, not just in video gaming, as well as online. I want more diverse, voices and diverse people and representation. Why? Because it's interesting. I want women in gaming. I want them playing games. I want them creating games. I want them being represented in media. LGBTQIA+, Black, Asian, Indigenous, different people, interesting stories, new perspectives, new adventures, all that stuff. And nothing makes me happier than different people playing games that I enjoy and being represented. Representation is important. It's important in media. It's important in storytelling. And it's interesting. It's way more interesting. I don't need to play as a white cisgendered male because I already have that down. All right? I already got it. Been there, done that. All right? New experiences are fun. They're engaging. And you might actually learn something. And maybe, I don't know, at the end of the day, you might empathize with people who are different. Weird. But that's ultimately what these right-wing chuds don't want. Because they're reactionaries. They're reactionaries. And if you realize that different people happen to be also human and are not a threat to you or your way of life, guess what? Their politics goes away. They run on fear, anger, distrust, and ignorance. Learning about people, playing a mile in their shoes, hearing their stories, experiences is how you dispel that ignorance. When you do that, magically, it's like magic. All that stuff melts away. The fear and anger, the hatred. And the problem with that when it comes to the right wing is that's what they run on. They lose their power over people. They lose their ability to make money, to get views and clicks. And they cannot abide that. They cannot lose that little bit of power. Which is why, of course, I think it's important that we do things like this, that we step up and we advocate and we work to protect marginalized creators and not only protect those creators, but boost their voices. And that's why, for me personally, I'm taking a day off Twitch. And I think if you're a creator, even if you're big or small, doesn't matter. You should probably take the day off Twitch too. And even when you're back on, to continue to try to help and boost these marginalized voices and give them power as well. All right. So, that's it. That's all I got here. Let's see. Before I go, I want to check the chat here. Twitch walkout. Yes. Based. See? The right wing actually dominate the gaming community. They convert a lot of minorities with their BS. Yes, and that's what we need to fight against. Let's see. Watch Spontaneous Series on YouTube. Oh my god, it's Game Girl. It makes me angry every time. Indeed. I just don't understand, like, why would you get mad at women wanting to play video games? I don't understand what makes people so, like, I don't know, what does it, like, take away their balls? Is that what that, are you feeling, like, emasculated because you got owned by a girl? Is that how you feel? It feels like super snowflakey shit to me. This is not alpha male stuff, okay? I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. No, play video games and get more people into playing video games. Get more people into making video games. Because you know what? More video games is better. And better video games are better. And the gaming industry has a lot of issues in it anyway, with, you know, corporations churning out, you know, less than stellar games. But you look at some of the classics, some of the really good stuff, like the Mass Effect series, and that was deeply progressive. And also, I mean, you know, especially for its time, but also really, really good storytelling. Because you got to know the people. It's the characters. It's all about the characters. All right. Have you seen that video going viral on TikTok of that dude saying he's an alpha and he's like 5'9"? I'm 5'9", actually. But anyway. All right. Let's check the super chats one more time before we go. Weary Pirates. The show would be better with background dancers. You know what? You know what, though? I'm ADHD, so I would get distracted by my own show. I'm already bad enough at it. At keeping and paying attention. So, sorry. Disagree. My body. Tyler Hackner says, "My body, my choice. Put your life in danger." And also adds solidarity to the Twitch streamers. Indeed. All right. Like I said, thank you. Going around the nation today. Please like, share the stream if you haven't already. Helps us out greatly. That. And we'll be back on all the platforms tomorrow. So everybody go and check out the clips. Fun times. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. Have a good night.
Amazing.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
I like my new tight.
Please clap.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.